I made a comment on one of my videos that I thought Black and White 2 was more similar to a ROM hack than a brand new Pokemon game, and this comment naturally got some flack. A user by the name of Void, I believe, asked me to explain my conclusion, and though very subjective, I attempted to. However, I feel that this would make a better theory because despite what the definition might say, we as consumers may feel the new entry should be more different than what was released to us. So today, let's discuss if Black and White 2 were new enough to be considered brand new entries, or if they suffer the same fate as Call of Duty. Yeah, I made a reference to Call of Duty, but it is a true reference. Take for example MW2 and MW3 from the Modern Warfare series. While Modern Warfare 3 did greatly improve and fix all the glitches from the previous Modern Warfare 2, it was not received as well. This is in part due to it using similar to the same graphics, mechanics, and overall its presentation from the menu system to the storyline being almost the same, just chopped up differently and placed in different positions. While the story was the continuation of the 3-game saga, comparably, the Halo series 1, 2, and 3 saw drastic changes to each game. From the mechanics to the soundtracks and even the graphics got an upgrade each time. Though that might be a bit unfair to say since the first 2 games were on the original Xbox instead of all 3 being on the 360. However, the idea is still in place. Make a game sequel different enough to be considered its own game. Because if the developer fails to do this, then it would be more akin to an expansion or DLC, and it will be panned and criticized as such for being priced as a new game. You get the idea, but that is simple back information on what I consider to be a new game. But to sum it up, a game that it's its own game, not just an expansion or DLC. While there's more I can talk about on the subject, just understand that the main reason that games are questioned when they are clearly new or different games entirely is usually broken down into how new those games actually are, and with time involved versus money paid for said game. Black and White 2 have been out for a while now, but the price of the games are still fairly high. Pokemon games do hold their value. This is in part due to not being able to repurchase them digitally. Also, generally speaking, they are good games, with the exception of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire due to excessive water. Take a look at the Pokemon trading card game versus Red and Blue. There is a massive price gap due to it being readily available digitally. Card only, the trading card game trends at around $5 to $8 versus the minimum of $20 for Red and Blue, and that's simply because Red and Blue was never released digitally. So that is the basic understanding of why Pokemon games retain their value and why games are criticized so heavily most of the time. If these games were free or cheaper, I doubt there would be such heavy criticism due to the price required for spending on them. This is the first portion to why I look at Black and White 2 differently. So upon release, Black and White 2 was priced at the standard MSRP, which was around $40 American and much more expensive in other regions respectively. So this would cause a problem for roughly a quarter of the population to 3/4 of the population that make only enough to purchase 1 to 2 games every few months. Not trying to get off track here, but where I get my statistics are a broad range of age groups that play games and their respective incomes. It's an estimate at best, but as Pokemon is the second most grossing franchise in the world, I'd be willing to say and bet that not everyone that plays Pokemon can afford 2 new versions of the game, or even 1 sometimes. Sorry for getting off track there, but people do like to know where my information comes from sometimes. Let's assess Pokemon Black and White 2 based on a few factors. We already identified that it was priced at a fully new game for the DS at least, but let's also look at graphics, sound, mechanics, and new features with story. Graphically speaking, there is nothing new aside from a few minor changes and tweaks. There is no whole new engine, there is no whole new sprite line. I even went so far as to compare several sprites, both moving and not moving, and for the most part, they are the same. And while the tweaks are nice, it is not exactly brand spanking new, as if the bulk of what the player is going to be looking at would be brand spanking new with a new game, and that is not this. And the overworld and the battle screen are the #1 things that the player is going to see. So no, graphically speaking, the game seems more like reused assets than something created and tailored for a brand new game. That's not saying there is not any new graphics. Obviously, the new mechanics I will mention will have them, but they are minor at best, but it is quite visually advanced. There is fog that fades, as well as darkness that comes in caves, so thumbs up for that. There are also some cinematics, if you want to call them that, but I always feel that these detract from the immersion, though it is something new-ish, I suppose. Sound-wise, the cries of Pokemon sound the same, and the music is reused from previous generations, as well as some fresh remixes. It's not completely new, but then I wouldn't expect it to be. Now, let's talk about the story, and this is where I really dislike Black and White 2. The game features a brand new story with new characters, new areas to explore, and more. And this game features a mechanic called Memory Link that allows linking of the original Black and White games and the sequel to show short events, fleshing out the story more. While I appreciate this feature, I feel that there was no reason to make it a feature that required the connection of Black and White, as Black and White were canon for the events of Black and White 2, and it prevents newcomers to 2 that failed to play 1 from seeing the backstory fully. I know it's just a bonus, but it was a bonus that demanded the purchasing of the original game. And yes, Black and White 2, despite my disdain for the story, is a brand new story, and pretty solid one at that. I played through it twice and found myself interested at times. Despite my opinion though, it is new. Finally, the possibility of new and more important mechanics. Pokemon Black and White 2 added some fresh content like additional activities, Join Avenue, Pokestar Studios, and Pokemon World Tournament, along with the fusion mechanic and the habitat feature, as well as the new medal system, which archives your achievements. There's also a key system that can alter the difficulty of the game. However, this shouldn't be an unlocked system, as most people who are going to play this game do not want an easy experience. Many of these features are impressive. There is, however, just one problem though. How many times are you going to make a Pokemon movie? How many times are you going to beat Red or Lance? And how many times are you going to replay the game? Despite these features being new in a sense, they still fall under the repetitious nature. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude on this. Black and White 2, for me, it just doesn't feel like a new game. And that is the issue. You can point out factually that it is a new game, but I still shrug and say meh. Black and White 2 are my least liked games of the series, despite being one of the most expansive and best Pokemon games that has been offered. There are other games that fall into the reuse versus new category, but most of those games came with some defining new feature, like moving sprites for Crystal and Emerald. And these games changed the sprites and gave them new life, instead of having them paper thin, a still image, and that was one of the defining changes for them. For me, as a core player of Pokemon, the only features I used in Black and White 2 were the fusion feature every once in a while and the tournament system. But even those were used sparingly, as they were unlocked when the game was mostly over. But am I wrong though? Do you think Black and White 2 was the greatest game ever? Let me know in the comments below, and I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out. Please like and share this where you can. Good gaming, and God bless. Thanks for watching my video and making it to the end. If you want to see my theories a day early, make sure to head over to my Patreon, where donators get a day early viewing of my newest theories. And follow me over on Twitter to see my updates about certain videos and access to some cool unlisted hidden content as well. If you don't have Twitter, I am on Tumblr too, so be sure to check out my videos on your preferred social networks, or subscribe here on good old YouTube. I've been on YouTube for a while now, and I don't plan on going anywhere soon, so I hope you keep supporting me by liking the video and sharing it where you can on Facebook or Twitter or other forums as well. Thank you again for taking a bit of time out to support me, and I hope to see you here next time on Pokemon Theory. Please note that in all my videos, if I use images from Google, that I do not own any of those images, and all images obtained from Google are owned by their respective owners and copyrights. So please remember this when watching my Pokemon theories. Thanks.